Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to 12th Young Ifso Journal Club. This is our first journal club in New York. We have four presentation, and actually, this is our 10th Young Ifso anniversary. And congratulations to all. First of all, it would be my honor to invite Professor Wang, President of Ifso APC, to deliver his speech on a interesting topic, obesity in bariatric surgery and stigma. Professor?
Yes. Thank you, everyone, especially every young guy. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning. Please play the video of my talk. Hello, good afternoon, good morning, good evening. I'm Mr. Wang from China. Thanks President Hua Yang invitation me. Today I will talk about obesity, bariatric surgery, and stigma. Well, although obesity is a highly prevalent chronic disease, and now in the world, more and more people obese. In some country, like nearly 61% population is obese. And what is stigma? The society's negative calculation to some special groups. For obesity stigma, because the patient may be fell, sleeping, poor, eating disorder, many kind of bad things. And for the individuals experience with stigma may wish to change weight, blame self, hate self, believe they have no value as a person, also may be unsure if others will like them. And for weight stigma may increase risk of obesity and weight gain. Maybe binge eating behavior more and higher calorie consumption, reduce the physical activity, or maybe poor behavioral weight loss treatment outcome. The prevalence of weight stigma in this literature, we can say about 20 to 40% people, obese people, maybe feel stigma. And for weight stigma, obesity stigma, we can say maybe stresses and increase eating, increase cortisol, and to weight gain. How to stop or change obesity stigma? Bariatric surgery maybe is a good method. Next, this kind of people after operation, weight loss changed very big, so maybe can change obesity stigma. Well, this in my experience are 26-year-old obese people, BMI 32, and with high blood pressure. He felt stigma in the workplace and could not find a girlfriend. In 2013, he received a certificate to me. After we dropped to normal, he successfully fell in love with a very beautiful girl and get married, and they had twin sons. This is the picture. So his obesity stigma changed. But there is also a stigma about bariatric surgery. Up to now in the world, about just 1% obese people received bariatric surgery. Maybe this is also a stigma. Why? Because some people maybe don't think obesity is a disease, just think obesity is a lifestyle choice, because they think obesity no specific symptom associated with it, and also think maybe this kind of people think it's a risk factor for disease, not a disease itself. Also, how many important barriers for undergoing the bariatric surgery, maybe like fail the surgical risk, fail complication, maybe also don't think themselves as a candidate for surgery. Also maybe think need of surgical recommendation by clinic. Also maybe insurance coverage problem. Also long-term waiting time. And for bariatric surgery, maybe many people think just is a cosmetic surgery. If complication happen, maybe many people think the obese people before the operation his good health, just to want to lose some weight. So why complication happen? And it's very different from cancer surgery. Also in some hospital don't pay enough attention to the bariatric surgery. Like this case in our hospital, after operation, the insurance company consider bariatric surgery to be a cosmetic surgery, and they refuse to pay for medical expenses. So we can compare the bariatric surgery and the cancer surgery. These two kinds of surgery both can reduce people's life expectancy and the quality of life. These two kinds of disease, obesity and cancer. And this two kinds of surgery, comprehensive treatment, also based on surgery. Also, there is a possibility of request all of these two kinds of surgery, and all the two kinds of surgery may require reoperation. But how we can see the difference? For cancer surgery, cancer may be in the world increase incidence, but obesity surgery, obesity people incidence is growing rapidly. And obesity is a disease? Yes. Obesity is a disease. Need treatment, need surgery. So it's also a family of stigma that obese patient don't receive the same treatment such as cancer. So how to stop obesity stigma? Here we can see this is a measurement tool. We can measure the stigma. And for language, for patient, we can use the obese patient. They surgery is success or the surgery is failure. And the super obese, we can use the patient with obesity, weight regain for the surgery response, non-response, severe obesity. And now we can see here are joint international consensus statement for eating stigma of obesity. We can use it to stop obesity stigma. In China, in our team, we did some study. Also, we have some paper to study it, like this one, in eating obesity stigma and discrimination, staff from healthcare profession. So in China, we have China Obesity Day, and we ask take action together to help more people to stop obesity stigma. Here we can say Chinese language paper also talk about it, obesity, metabolic surgery, stigmatization, discrimination, and prejudice. Here is another paper, research progress on stigma in biological metabolic surgery patients. So we need to take effective measure to popularize metabolic biological surgery in order to break down the stereotype of the general public and to reduce stigma. Also, here have a very good paper, a global differential study of operative management of metabolic surgery for obesity. Here, another paper talk about it. We can say is mandatory for patient to lose weight before surgery. And for some special patient, like LGBT with obesity, this kind of people usually with obesity stigma. So we need more attention about this kind of people. And for the teenager with obesity, usually they use how to know the health lifestyle, weight loss, and weight management. We need understand this kind of knowledge. And we also know we have a World Obesity Day, and in China we have a China Obesity Day. We can do more to stop the.
Can we explain the camera, please? You did?
So we can conclusion.
Oh, the arm please clutch. Can you unclutch
Obesity
that, please?
stigma exists to varying degrees. Obesity stigma can have a negative effect on obese people, affecting their social interaction, medical treatment, jobs such family life, work, essentially. Most obese people need to fight obesity for life. In medicine, obesity stigma require the attention and the participation of the whole society. For all biological surgeons, this is a new problem we face, and we must pay more attention to this problem, and we all act together to stop stigma. Okay, thank you everyone.
Thank you, Professor Wang, for your nice and useful presentation. Any question?
So maybe I have a question to ask our panelists. And in your center or in your country, have you set up any special regulations, or do you have any guidelines or consensus statements regarding on this topic, the obesity stigma prevention in your clinical practice? Anyone?
So we don't have any regulations on that or any prevention guidelines. But I think one of the most important steps to prevent from stigmatize these patients is that obesity should be worldwide recognized as a disease. And this is not in every country the case yet. I think this is one of the most important messages. And still, even in Austria, we have the problem that now, since 2 or 3 years, they say, okay, it's recognized as a disease, but it's not completely paid like other diseases if you want to have a medication for that. So this is still a problem also in Austria, and I think in other European countries.
Yeah, in many countries, bariatric surgery is still regarded as some sort of cosmetic surgery. So the insurance don't cover it at all. So many people did not receive this treatment. I think this is also another kind of stigma or discrimination on this group of people. So Shaha, are you still here?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, I think that weight stigma may keep people away from getting weightless surgery, and we should reducing the stigma of bariatric surgery and altogether, and health professional and nutritionist, medical doctor, and all together. It's not just on surgeons, I think.
I agree as well, and definitely here in Egypt, still never, approved for, still classified as cosmetic surgery. But I think within the next couple of years, this will change. There are, two main reasons for this stigma. Is they don't want to add, the extra expenses on the insurance company, and the second reason, which is they still don't consider obesity as a disease. And I think it's our role to work on this second option and try to spread the word and make them understand. I actually have a question to Professor Wang. I'm not sure if I caught it right. Did NARA have 60% obesity rate? In one of your slides, you stated the prevalence of obesity, or what that was overweight and obese patients.
Okay. You mean the percentage of bariatric surgery?
Yes. In your presentation, one of the slides said that NORA was the top place that had obesity, and it said 60%. Was that obesity or obese and overweight?
Yes. So, like in China, the high BMI patient worldwide need bariatric surgery, but sometimes the no BMI patient very interested for bariatric surgery. So this is need education, need we do more than maybe this is also another kind of stigma. And now we all know in many countries the percentage of population to receive the bariatric surgery is more and more is increased very quickly. But I think maybe stigma is still a big problem. So also need a way, especially with the young bariatric surgeon to do more.
Honestly, I think it's. Go ahead.
if it is 16, I guess it is obesity rate, and if it is 16, I guess it will be the overweight as well. Yeah.
Most probably. No, I think we have a problem here because I was just saying it's our role to fight the stigma, but we're sort of biased. I mean, I have friends that ask me about bariatric surgery. I sort of always want to stand on the line because whether you like it or not, we're biased. This is what we do. This is what we do every day. This is what we do for a living. So we need the right, educator. And I'm not sure if it's going to be us surgeons that would be able to fight the stigma. We need to find someone to fight this fight for us. I'm not sure if you agree with me or not.
Should we go on to the next presentation?
Yeah.
Shahar?
I think the next is mine, and I sent my pre-recorded video yesterday to the Ifso Young's secretary, and so it's better because some connection problem may damage our presentation. So please let's watch the video, I think.
Glad to invite.
Hi everyone, it's Amir from Iran.
Amir.
I want to thank Dr. Shahabi and Dr. Wah Yang from China and Iran to let me present my discussion and my paper about patient selection in OAGB. I have no conflict of interest. Here you can see my mixture of operation in this recent year, more than 1,300 of patients, 47% of sleep and 15% of revision in my own practice. Our daily practice, there is some challenging in patient selection because in many fields we have no evidence-based surgery or we have no long-term data. So in this situation, there may be some challenging issues. So the purpose of this study was to find out a way to better patient selection for OAGB, MGB operation. This study conducted from an modified Delphi consensus from different countries, 24 different countries, by participation of 57 famous and expert bariatric surgeons. We started with a WhatsApp group, and after almost 2 weeks online discussion, we defined 6 main axes in patient selection. Demographic characteristics, obesity-associated medical problems and unrelated medical problems, and OAGB, MGB in patient with long-term medication use, this operation after previous gastrointestinal surgeries, and also OAGB, MGB as conversional procedures. These 6 axes included 69 statements, and all the voters were requested to vote on all of these 69 statements for the first round, and agreement or disagreement choice will exist. If 70% of voters agree or in some questions disagree with the statement, it considered to achieve consensus. After a while, we performed the second round, and in second round, non-consensus statements was again invited to the voters to vote again, and again more than 70% was considered as consensus statements. The first round, 38 of these statements are achieved consensus. For the second round, finally, 56 of these 69 statements were achieved consensus at final second round. Due to lack of time, I want to show you only important part of these statements rather than all of 69 statements. More than 90% of participants are awarded that this operation, OAGB-MGB, is an acceptable and suitable option in patients with BMI more than 70, 60, and 50 as one-stage procedure. And also as the second stage of a two-stage bariatric surgery after sleeve gastrectomy in patients with BMI more than 50 instead of BPDDS in patients with weight regain after restrictive procedures. And also in patients with previous gastric balloon or in patients with gallstone, the OAGB-MGB is acceptable procedure. In return, there were disagreement consensus for OAGB-MGB in children, OAGB-MGB in patient who wants to pregnant soon, in case of intestinal metaplasia of the stomach, in patient with severe GERD, in patient with documented insulinema, in patient with documented iron deficiency, anemia in patient with cirrhosis, child B in patient with gastric ulcers or duodenal ulcers. Also, there were disagreement for performing OAGB and MGB in patient with sleeve leakage and for weight regain after Roux-en-Y gastric bypass. There was a consensus to perform OAGB-MGB as an acceptable operation in old patient and also in patient with BMI between 30 and 35 with medical problems and in Asian patient with lower BMI, for example, 26 to 30 BMI with type 2 diabetes, and a good option in patient with BMI more than 50 as one-stage procedure. Also, OAGB-MGB can consider a safe procedure in vegetarian and vegan patients. Also, a suitable procedure in patients with large hiatal hernia with concurrent hiatal hernia repair. On the other hand, there were disagreement to perform OAGB-MGB in patients with GERD type C and type D and Barrett esophagus. And for performing this operation in children and adolescents, it did not meet consensus. I tried to finish my talking within 10 minutes. Again, I want to thank Dr. Shahobi and Dr. Young, and also I want to appreciate young Ifso members, all participants in this meeting. If there are any question, I will be ready to answer. And again, thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you, Amir, for presenting this interesting paper. Actually, Amir is my friend and worked with me in Rasul Akram Hospital, which is high volume center and center of excellence of metabolic and bariatric surgery. Amir, can you hear me? Amir?
Yes, I can hear you, but my video was stopped by the Ifso.
Okay. Amir, how did you find surgeon for voting? I have two questions. One is, how did you find surgeon for voting? And is there any consensus for low BMI patient without any bariatric related comorbidity?
The first idea was made within another webinar, GLR, Global Laparoscopy. And in this webinar, the first idea was made by our friend, Dr. Muhammad Kermansaravi, and thereafter we made a WhatsApp group and we add Ifso president chapters, previous Ifso presidents, and also famous bariatric surgeons, and both two inventor of OAGB, MGB, Professor Carbajo and also Dr. Rutledge. And after this gathering, we made the axis and we made the questionnaire by SurveyMonkey, and many of you may work with this. And also for patients with low BMI but without any comorbidities related to obesity, there was no consensus. At the first round, I think at the first round, 57% of voters are agree with this, less than 70%. And at the second round, I think 64% of voters are agree with this. So it didn't achieve consensus.
Thank you, Amir. Any question from audience? Panelist or?
Please.
Hi, Amir.
Omar.
One question. Have you also asked about the indication? Because, for example, in Austria, we have the indication that we are doing only OEGP in patients that are not suffering from GERD. Have you asked centers about that?
Yes, we have 3 questions about GERD. GERD in grade A and B, GERD with grade B, C and D, and GERD with Barrett esophagus. For grade A and B, the consensus were achieved for patients with GERD grade D, C, and also with Barrett esophagus. There was not agreement between the voters.
Okay. I was also a little bit wondering that the revisional procedure after sleeve gastrectomy, that there was a consensus about OEGB, because most of the sleeve gastrectomy patients that need a revision are suffering from GERD. So
yes,
our strategy is normally that we are converting them to a Roux-en-Y gastric bypass, as this may be a little bit better procedure for that.
Definitely, when we have GERD and weight regain after sleep, the best choice is Roux-en-Y gastric bypass, definitely. But you can read another paper by our team with me, Shahab, Dr. Kermansaravi, and some other about revisional surgery after failed sleeve and other restriction operation. We published it a couple of months before in obesity surgery, and we talk about this, and we also collect all in a meta-analysis. More than thousands of patients were included in this study, and you can read this. But yes, if there is sleeve failure, if there is some reflux, yes, the best choice is Roux-en-Y gastric bypass.
Yeah, congratulations to this great publication.
So thank you. I think we are late, and I promised Manuela to finish on time. Let's go next presentation. I invite my friend Mehdi Eskali. He's from Montpellier University Hospital for presenting his paper on complication of the Nissen sleeve.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. Thank you, Shahab, for the presentation, and thank you for inviting me to this webinar. Just let me please introduce myself. My name is Mehdi Eskali. I'm a surgeon, bariatric surgeon, digestive surgeon. In Montpellier, I've been working in the University Hospital of Montpellier since 2005. So I was there in the beginning of this procedure of Nissen sleeve since 2013. I will share my presentation with you about this controversial topic of what I believe a very bad procedure. And as my Amir said last time in Iranian Congress, I show you the dark side of the Nissen sleeve. gastrectomy. This is the original article published in 2016. It was about 25 patients, morbid obese patient with symptomatic GERD or hiatal hernia, included barydoesophagus less than 2 centimeter. And we exclude the barydoesophagus more than 2 centimeters or a history of gastric or bariatric surgery. This is the results of the 25 first patients with Nissen sleeve. And we had at this time 12% of redo surgery. One had a perforation. Another one, two other ones had redo surgery for redo the wrap because of dysphagia and bezoar. This is a doctoral thesis published in 2017 about the first 100 patients with Nissen sleeve gastrectomy. And in this first 100 patients, we had 14% of them, 14 patients who had revision surgery because of perforation of the wrap, 6 conversion to sleeve because dilation of wrap or insufficient excess weight loss, 2 because of bleeding, 1 conversion to toupee because of dysphagia, and 1 redo wrap for dysphagia. These numbers are primary results of the Nissen sleeve at the University Hospital of Montpellier from 2013 to 2022, more than 700 patients. In this series, there is near 8% of patients, 62, who had at least 1 revision surgery after Nissen sleeve, 3.5 for leak perforation ischemia of the wrap, 3.3 for dysphagia, valvulary release dilation of the wrap, near 1% for bleeding, and 1 patient had a redo surgery for intestinal tear. In this series, there is 2 deaths after Nissen sleeve. This first video is a mix of CT scans of patients who had complications after Nissen sleeve. First one was a dilation of the wrap, you see here. Second one was a bezoar in the wrap. And third one had a redo because of dysphagia. One had a redo surgery because insufficient weight loss. Another dysphagia after Nissen sleeve. Another dysphagia, another patient with dysphagia. We move on. Then I believe that the limits of the Nissen sleeve are the poor drainage of the valve, mainly the left side of the Nissen, associated with the hyperpressure of this half sleeve. It's not a whole sleeve. There is another limit, the valve expansion. There is the fundus. What about the greening? We leave there. Then this neo reservoir lead to food retention, bezoar, dysphagia, and what about the vascularization? It's not a good vascularization after this kind of procedure. I published with my friend Shetan Parmar a case of necrosis of Nissen sleeve. This is the video of this case, redo surgery of POD2. You see the necrosis of the wrap with a perforation. Then we need to remove the wrap. We don't have other option to resolve this situation. Another a re then no solution, then remove the wrap. This is a third case, a complete ischemia of the wrap. You see it here. This is the first video of a reduced POD4 because of dysphagia. This slide's just to say that the name of Nissen sleeve for me is a bad name because it's not a real Nissen, neither a real sleeve, maybe half-half. I think we need to call this procedure another name, not the Nissen sleeve. Then in conclusion, I believe that the classic sleeve is an effective bariatric intervention, even if there is a clinical GERD, and it needs to be well performed. No need to valve or to Nissen if the patient has GERD. We need to avoid stenosis, avoid no resection of the fundus, and the sleeve is a very good bariatric intervention. I believe that the treatment of GERD in obese patients is first and foremost the treatment of intra-abdominal hyperpressure, and therefore it's the treatment of the excess of weight. And I believe that if there is severe preoperative GERD and or endoscopic severe complications, like Barrett's esophagus, Roux-en-Y gastric bypass should be gold standard in these situations. In conclusion, I think that the combo Nissen sleeve in reality infeasible. What about the vascularization of the valve? What about the valve drainage? Are there really indication for performing the Nissen sleeve? I don't think so. There is that's the data. There's a huge increase of morbidity after Nissen sleeve, and this intervention creates in the long term this problem, complex conversion. If there is failure in the mid-long term, weight regain or persistence recurrence of GERD. Thank you for your attention. I've done this presentation. I'm here in Morocco, my native country, and this is my city, Tangier. I invite all of you to visit my country, very beautiful country. Thank you.
Thank you, dear Mehdi, for your nice presentation and videos. And any question? I have a question. Finally, I have no experience in Nissen sleeve. Do you offer Nissen sleeve for any patient or not? Or
me?
Yes.
Yeah, I stopped doing this surgery on 2016. With this results, I stopped perform this procedure. I believe it is a very, very morbid procedure. I believe because we are in this situation of beliefs. I think you don't have to do this procedure for this kind of patient. Do better Roux-en-Y gastric bypass if you don't believe in sleeve, but you should not do this procedure.
Thank you. Dear panelists, have any idea?
I have maybe a question. So how can you explain that David Knocker, I think he presented about a case series of 500 patients with only a few complications and very good results. He was, I think, at the last Ifso EC Congress when he did this presentation. What do you think about his results? That, of course.
Yeah, this is a very good remark. We work in the same hospital. You need to ask him why his results are different than mine. We asked for an external checking of the data, an external audit, and that's what I can answer right now about this.
So you think that there are more complications that are published?
There is in the data we work on. There is 8% of reduced surgery.
Please.
In comparison with sleeve, there is 12 times more reduced surgery with Nissen sleeve.
Oh, please don't talk about someone that there is no in our.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. For this reason,
okay.
Yeah, for this reason, please ask him.
Okay.
Don't ask me. Ask him in my presentation, not on other one presentation. Yeah.
Moritz,
I agree.
I think it's the same as with plication. We have a really small percentage of complications in comparison with other hospitals. And I don't know if it is technique or something else, but I think it's just maybe the technique that it's not similar in the hands of each surgeon.
Yeah, maybe. Mm-hmm.
But
thank you.
This is the question. This question of you and have why we need.
Modi, I think your presentation is very good, but what is the indication for Nissen sleeve? We do Nissen sleeve, maybe mainly is reflex, but this patient, if we do RYGB, if maybe the complication not like leak something, in your presentation, we say, I mean, RYGB or Nissen sleeve gastrotomy, which one is good for?
For me, patients are not with GERD symptomatic, but sphincter. There's no pressure in this. Only why things if avoid twist vendors are very processed because that's GERD patient is to the density to is good. But if sleep, I believe will proceed for me with a lot of issues. Very even if you have on a sleep scan, I don't know, but after surgeries, to another surgery.
Your connection is very bad now.
Yes. Thank you. Let's go for the last presentation. It's my pleasure to invite last speaker, Dr. Mastane Tabe. She's a PhD in nutrition and sport physiology from Tehran University of Medical Science. Let's go, Mastane. Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay.
Hi, everybody, and thanks for having me. I think if you want to finish on time, I should start just right now. I present publication which we published at 2022. It's about the food addiction disorder 2 years after bariatric surgery. I mean, sleeve gastrectomy association with physical activity, body composition, and weight loss outcomes. You know that the failure of non-surgical management to achieve long-term weight loss maintenance make the bariatric surgery to be an effective and long-term weight loss intervention. Laparoscopic sleeve gastrectomy is one of the most common bariatric surgery now, and is increasingly be relatively comparable with outcomes with other type of bariatric surgery and fewer negative effects. Bariatric surgery leads to substantial weight loss, improve the lifestyle, and enhance the healing process of obesity comorbidities. But some individuals undergoing bariatric surgery do not experience any significant weight loss and maybe regain the initial weight loss. Specifically important to identify the risk factors, psychological disorder relating to eating behavior such as food addiction. Food addiction is characterized by the high consumption. Do you have my voice?
Yes.
Okay. Food addiction is characterized by high consumption of particular food items such as fat and sugar and salt, and unusual behavioral pattern like poor self-control, overeating. The etiology of the food addiction disorder, we do not understand it very well, but maybe endocrine pathway and neural endocrine pathway involved in the food addiction process. Food addiction is not officially defined in DSM, but accumulating evidences suggest that the description of the food addiction markedly overlaps with DSM criteria of substance addiction. According to the previous study, the prevalence of food addiction ranged from 40 to 58 before surgery and 2 to 30 after surgery. Emerging concepts suggest that a decreasing trend of problematic eating behavior such as food addiction is not stable post-operatively, and maybe the disorder remain problematic after the operation and even tend to increase after years. For our study, we enrolled 450 patients who undergone a sleeve gastrectomy 2 years before. The study, food addiction, was diagnosed using the Yale Food Addiction Scale, and weight, fat mass, fat-free mass were measured by using BIA. Food intake by assessed by a 24-hour food recall, and physical activity was assessed using the Global Physical Activity Questionnaire, or GPAC. And you can see here the baseline characteristic. And we found that many patients struggling pathological eating behavior such as food addiction disorder before and even after bariatric surgery, which might be associated by the negative outcomes after the operation. About 20% of our subjects meet the criteria of food addiction disorder based on Yale Food Addiction Scale measure 2 years after bariatric surgery. According to the previous study, the prevalence of food addiction varies from 2 to 7 at 6 months post-operation and 40 at 12 months. We found it's 20%, and the high prevalence of food addiction in the present study highlight the importance of food addiction disorder, especially in the first and the second years after bariatric surgery. In line with previous study, food addiction does not seem to resolve post-operatively and remains to be a problem even after the surgery. So due to the methodological differences, conclusive comparison of the evidences should be made with more caution. For example, in a Turkish study, they found that they found any food addiction disorder 2 years after bariatric surgery. So we should make some comparison with more caution. Several factors might be associated with the food addiction disorder, including dysregulation of the emotion and high reward dependence that individual experience after surgery. Is there a relation between food addiction and physical activity? Yes, our patient excuse me, who meet the criteria of food addiction 2 years after surgery have lower physical activity. But some studies showed that the low physical activity levels may stimulate the food craving and disinhibition. And we know that by DSM criteria, craving and disinhibition are considered as some risk factor for addiction process. So we can use physical activity intervention maybe as a vital effect on the food addiction, or maybe as a therapy for food addiction disorder. The relation between food addiction and body composition, it's very interesting, special for me. The findings show the significant positive association between food addiction, weight, BMI, and fat mass and fat-free mass 2 years after surgery. In other words, our patients with food addiction were generally heavier compared to those without food addiction. And interestingly, the correlation remains significant after adjusting for many confounding factors such as physical activity. As far as we know, this is the first study of the relationship between food addiction and body composition in individuals with morbid obesity after bariatric surgery. Regarding to our findings, weight outcomes and body composition changes, the finding reveals a lower excess weight loss and total weight loss and a greater fat mass loss in food addiction patients. Importantly, despite a high fat-free mass in the individual with the food addiction, they experience a higher fat-free mass loss after surgery compared to those without food addiction. A higher fat mass loss is very worrying as it's negatively affects on the quality of life, bone mineral density, and REE may lead to weight regain and adverse effect in the long term following bariatric surgery. Food addiction and eating pattern is very important because overconsumption of high caloric foods such as fat and sugar by food addiction patient could negatively affect their weight loss or even cause fat accumulation. But our findings revealed a similar total energy intake by food addiction and non-food addiction participants. More interestingly, the weight and the BMI composition changes were unrelated to confounding factors such as age, sex, and physical activities. We have some limitation. Yes, the first one is our individual went sleeve gastrectomy. BIA is not the gold standard, and our study design is cross-sectional, so we cannot use it to determine a causal relationship. But as far as we know, special attention should be paid to post-operative food addiction disorder, and we need some studies in a long-term outcomes of bariatric surgery to improve our understanding of the predictor of the food addiction following the process. Thanks for having me.
So thank you, dear Masana, for your nice presentation. I have a question. Which predicting factor did you find for food addiction in your study? Would you please explain?
Yes, younger age, I mean the participants who are young, below the 13, was related to higher odds of food addiction and higher values of excess weight loss and baseline BMI positively related to food addiction 2 years after bariatric surgery.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Any question? Dear Tamer, you performed too many sleeve gastrectomy. Do you have any idea? Dear panelist, any question, any idea about addiction?
Thank you for your presentation. The question is, what do you think about calories after bariatric surgery? Because we all know that the first year the patients have a hypercalorian diet normally. But if, for example, we try to raise up these calories for the end of the year, it's maybe the one of the response of the food addiction, because if the patient in the hypocholerage, he has a problem with high fast. And what do you think about it?
They use more calorie in second years of bariatric surgery, but they compensate it with more physical activity, more intensity, and lower protein intake. They use more carbohydrates and fat and sugar and some maybe salt, for example, crispy, salty snacks. But the using of the protein snacks are very, very low. So the calorie intake is not very between the food addiction group and non-food addiction group, but the pattern of eating is different.
You don't see the relationship between the, okay.
Thank you. Any comment, question?
Rosanna, I think you have some comments.
Yeah, it was a question really. Thank you, Mastina. It was a really fantastic presentation. It's a really interesting topic, and I was just wondering from our surgical perspective, often in my country, we are the first person to see these patients in clinic. What are the best screening tools that we can use in order to identify these patients at risk of, who have food addiction, and therefore to then refer them on for special dietetic support before surgery? Are there any quick and easy tools that we can use in clinic in order to help us identify them?
I think that observing the eating pattern after surgery in some follow-ups, for example, 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, and 12 months, the eating pattern. For example, the patient who consume more carbohydrate in the 6 months, it's worrying us because maybe the protein intake is very low and maybe some food cravings occur, and at 12 months, maybe the food addiction starts again. So using 24 hours recall and discussing on the eating pattern face-to-face with the patient maybe help.
Thank you. And do they always require psychological support on top of nutritional support, or which is the priority here in terms of, in terms of referral, or both?
I think both, and psychiatrist and nutritionist, bariatric nutritionist is very, very important because it's a whole different world after bariatric surgery, and they should gain some new eating behavior, and maybe it's a very challenges for the patient. So as a teamwork, maybe it's better.
Thank you. Any question? So we've finished in 1 hour, and thank you for joining us and support us. I hope it would be useful webinar. Yerva, do you have any comments? Yerva, you are mute, I think.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So if you don't have any questions, no more questions, right? So
no, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Shahar, for organizing this one. Although there are some connection problem at your side, but it is turning better. And I thank again for all the speakers and panelists, and especially Professor Cici Wang, who is on the business trip but still joining us today. And please be reminded our webinar, our journal club, will be on all the Ifso social media platforms, so you can watch the recording later if you didn't join us this time live. So thanks again, Shahar, for your great contribution to this webinar. So we are organizing every 2 months now at the first Friday, and so please read your emails if you are Ifso member, and also pay attention to the Ifso newsletters, websites, and YouTube channels. So thank you again. So see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you for your great contribution, my friend and colleagues.
Thank you very much.
See you. Bye.
Thank
Thank you.